Anniversary, I watched my husband drop something into my champagne, so I stood up with a smile and handed it to his coworker, then watched her drink what was meant for me. Part 1. My name is Vivian Hole, I'm 38 years old, a financial advisor living in Seattle. I've always been the planner in the family, the spreadsheet type, logical, loyal, and for most of our 15-year marriage, I thought I had the perfect partner, Miles Hole. My husband is the kind of man people trust on sight, sharp jawline, clean smile, tailored suits, and a quiet voice that made investors lean in. He built a medical device company from the ground up, and he built our life along with it. We had a daughter, Noel, who's 12 now, sharp like me, warm like him. We had a house in Queen Anne with big windows and a garden. Miles promised to keep up. We had this rhythm: brunch on Sundays, lake walks in summer, anniversary trips in February. This year, our 15th, Miles insisted we do something memorable. He booked a boutique hotel overlooking Union Lake, rooftop dining, champagne towers, a private guest list, just close friends, colleagues, and a few out-of-town family members. The room was gold-lit and buzzing, filled with low jazz and the soft shimmer of clinking glasses. Pink orchids lined the tables. The air smelled like citrus and lake breeze. Everything felt cinematic. He gave a speech. Of course he did. Miles the Magnificent, my friends used to tease. He talked about love, longevity, how we'd survived recessions, parenting, even a home flood. He raised his glass and winked at me like we were still newlyweds. I smiled back. But somewhere behind that smile, I felt it. A strange stillness, not fear, not yet, just a beat too long between his glances, like he was measuring something, timing it. The woman beside him, Delaney, was introduced as a former nurse colleague, blonde, polished, warm voice. She hugged me like we were lifelong friends, even though I'd never heard her name before that night. She wore a silk green dress, her perfume was sharp and heavy, like lilacs left too long in the sun. She stayed close to Miles all evening, too close. Still, I told myself, you're overthinking. This is your night, don't ruin it. I watched them laugh over oysters, watched him brush a crumb off her wrist, watched her take a sip from her glass and smile just a little too slow. Then I saw it, his hand, palming something from his pocket, tilting toward my champagne flute like it was part of the act. And maybe it was. He thought I wouldn't notice. He thought I'd just keep smiling. He didn't know I had already stopped trusting him weeks ago. He didn't know this party was about to become unforgettable for the wrong reasons. Because while everyone else celebrated love, I was watching mine dissolve in real time, and I hadn't even cut the cake. Guests took photos in front of the floral wall. Laughter rippled through the room, like waves lapping against the dock just beyond the terrace. One of Miles's investors clinked glasses with a retired surgeon. Everyone seemed to adore him like they always had, and why wouldn't they? Miles was curated charm. He knew how to hold a gaze, how to compliment someone just right. He made people feel like they mattered. But lately, he'd stopped doing that with me. In the last few months, there were gaps in stories, gaps in schedule, conversations that trailed off, kisses that landed out of rhythm. I'd chalked it up to stress, to work, to aging, to anything but the truth. Until tonight, I was seeing the truth up close under chandeliers and cake toppers. Tonight, something inside me snapped, not in fear, but in clarity. And that clarity would change everything. The first time I knew something was off was on a Monday. Miles came home late again. He claimed it was a board meeting that ran over. But he didn't smell like the office. He smelled like cloves and vanilla. Like someone else's perfume had clung to him, soft and faint, but still wrong. I thought you hated working past 6, I said, handing him a reheated plate. He shrugged, loosened his tie. New investors, East Coast. They talk forever. I nodded, smiled, but I made a mental note. The second time, I noticed his gym bag. It was packed, but not with gym clothes. A silk button-up, brown leather shoes, no workout gear in sight. When I asked, he said, I keep a backup for last-minute meetings. But the lie was too smooth, too quick. He'd never needed a backup wardrobe in 15 years. The third time was what really made my stomach turn. He got a text in the kitchen. We were making breakfast for Noel, French toast and berries. The message flashed on his phone. Still can't stop thinking about last night. No name, just a heart emoji. He snatched the phone off the counter so fast he nearly knocked over the coffee. When I asked who was that, he chuckled. Seth from procurement. He's dramatic. Had a bad dinner date. I wanted to believe him, I really did. But Miles didn't have dinner dates with anyone, and definitely not ones that involved hearts and last nights. I started paying closer attention after that. I tracked how often he left the room when his phone rang, how he wore cologne on random Tuesdays, how he started locking his briefcase like we were strangers under the same roof. Noel noticed too. One night she whispered, "Why is Dad always smiling at his phone?" I wanted to say, because he's smiling at someone else, but instead, I kissed her forehead and said, he's just busy, honey. I kept the questions to myself, kept the doubts quiet, kept playing the role of the supportive wife. But inside I was building a case one piece at a time. Because if Miles was hiding something, I needed to be ready when the mask came off. She's just an old coworker, Miles said casually, slicing into a pear. It was 3 weeks before our anniversary. And he mentioned her as if it were nothing. Delaney Quinn used to work with me back at Harborview, before she moved into private care. I nodded slowly. How come I've never heard you mention her? He shrugged. She moved away before we got serious, just reconnected on LinkedIn. That was the first time I heard her name, Delaney. It landed too soft, too practiced. Like he'd rehearsed how to say it. I asked if she was coming to the party. He hesitated for a breath too long. Maybe. I extended the invite. She's in town. I said nothing. But something in me snapped tight. That Saturday, I stopped by his office to drop off some documents he'd forgotten. His secretary looked confused. I thought Miles was working from home today. I smiled, pretended I must have mixed it up. But inside my suspicions started forming legs. 2 days later, he changed his phone passcode. Said it was a new company protocol, cybersecurity stuff. Another clean excuse. Then came the slip-up. Miles and I were discussing the menu for the anniversary dinner: shrimp, lamb, dessert pairings. He mentioned that someone had suggested a lemon mousse. When I asked who, he paused. Oh, just the caterer. But later that night, I glanced at his planner under the tasting notes scribbled in his handwriting: Del loves citrus. I stared at the line until the ink blurred. Del, not a caterer, a nickname, short, intimate, not how you refer to someone you barely know. I didn't confront him. Not yet, but I started preparing. That weekend, while he was out meeting a supplier, I pulled up his laptop. He'd forgotten to log out. In his downloads folder, a PDF itinerary for a spa retreat for two. The dates matched the weekend he'd claimed he was attending a conference in Vancouver. The guest name fields: Miles Hole, Delaney Quinn. That was all I needed. It wasn't just suspicion anymore. It was fact, quiet damning fact. And he was still smiling at me like he deserved to toast 15 years. Was she just a guest or something more? 3 days before the anniversary dinner, I borrowed Miles's laptop. He'd left it on the kitchen counter, open like always. I needed to email a document to a client, but his email tab was still up. Normally, I would have clicked away, but one subject line caught my eye: reminder, dosage instructions. The sender, a pharmacy I'd never heard of. I clicked. The message was brief, clinical. As discussed, the liquid compound should be administered no more than 2.5 mg per drink. Causes dizziness, confusion, disorientation, not detectable in standard panels. I blinked. Read it again and again. My blood ran cold. The email was timestamped the same day Miles had said he was visiting a supplier in Tacoma. I scrolled further. There it was. An earlier email with the subject: pre-order confirmation, Del Q. I didn't need to guess. Del Q was Delaney Quinn. Delaney who loved citrus. Delaney who hugged my waist too long, and too sweet. Delaney, who now had a compound prepared with her name attached. I copied the emails to a USB I kept for taxes. My hands shook. But I kept them steady enough to hit download. I started digging. A text thread: Miles to Delaney, was saved as an image in the temp folder. Probably exported to send over Signal or WhatsApp. Miles, she'll be out before dessert. You just need to keep her talking. Delaney, are you sure it won't hurt her? Miles, just slows her down, no one will suspect. Then we talk options. Options for what? I slammed the laptop shut. My heart was pounding so loud it drowned the hum of the fridge.